Adam Griffith, the great Griff, back again with Dad John Griffiths and Peter Chesbrough. We're just revisiting the stones which we discussed last time in Bardic Code Unlocked Part 1. Right, there we go. So picture to the one we had last time.
Oh, that's a bit better, isn't it?
Bit better, yeah. Obviously,
can you see? Yeah, that's a much better shot. You can see the C or G at the end.
Yeah,
in the Tuidoc, right to the top line. There were moments when I was looking to see whether there was any more ghosting.
Mm.
This is why you need to go up to the stone itself and really have a close look at it, and even feel for the indents to see quite what you're seeing.
Looks like the top's been broken off on this. It looks like a much sharper. On the other ones I've seen, it sort of looks rounded like the edges of the stone, whereas this one, it looks like the top's actually been broken off.
Yeah,
I wonder if that's again something you'd have to look at in person, wouldn't you? And
yeah, plenty of space though. I'm not sure there'd be any writing.
No, but maybe some decoration crossed my mind, because we've seen quite a few with a cross or a figure at the top, haven't we?
Yeah. And if it's broken, how big was the form? How much more? Was there?
So I'll try and get to this one next week.
I can see the fabled chairs which are stacked up against it as well, which I think is good to add in there.
Oh dear.
Looking at the area of chief interest is what to make up of the letters immediately after the first D. What are we quite looking at? Because we had a look at a number of ideas there. I just plumbed for what I felt I could see in the end, but obviously something else might be seen. You mentioned for that second letter, that it reminded you of a fish.
It could have been, I do see there. You could make that out. Definitely,
especially on this image in particular.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That because when you first said that, I thought, what the bloody hell is he talking about? I can see it quite clearly on this one. Yeah. That's interesting.
And there are times when I was looking at it, well, am I looking at two X's put together there, or am I looking at a C and an X?
Yeah.
And so it was. It's quite. It's loaded with possibilities. So in the end, I made my choices.
Yeah.
So I think.
I think as we mentioned last week that when antiquarians or academics are looking at these things, they just make their choices and take a stab. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that whatsoever. It's the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All we can do is keep on doing it until something comes out of it that works.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always what if with me. Okay, well, it might be this. What if? Let's try and see what we get from it if we try it that way. And it seemed to be fine for me when I gave it, when I made my decisions. So I think I wrote that down. I made a little statement to say, it could be an A, it could be a combination of a C and an X, it could be two X's, but they have a strange way of actually coming back round to each other in the way that they might unfold as a letter. So it's not as if it blows it all up. It seems to be some kind of coherence there.
Yeah. Well, this links back to the kind of sort of ambiguity that we've picked up on quite a few artifacts at the moment, where it's kind of
flexibility maybe.
Yeah, it's unsure on purpose almost. Sometimes there's a
I think especially when you've got a crossover where in one way you're reading the text as Latin perhaps, and in another way you're reading it as Welsh. There are some times where that ambiguity helps.
Yeah, indeed, and
so you can press on both paths, as it were.
I think if the people who've given a reading for this stone already have taken something like that in mind as well, because if they're saying that's an A, it's on its side for a start. Which sometimes we know to have Colburn on them. There is that A which looks like the letter sort of goes down to a V shape.
That's right.
So I do recognise that could be an A on its side going into an X, which is personally that's what fit for me. So yeah, I'll throw up a picture of what I mean, but it's one of those characters which was recorded by Yolo and is on other stones like the Bardic stone, for example. And yeah, it's kind of it's used either upside down or up front. It's kind of
sometimes you can see that there might be a pun intended. I've seen, for example, when a letter might be on its side, it might key with a word that links with somebody's fallen, and so there's a visual pun in that. So I've noticed that there can be a playfulness at times when a letter is not upright, is on its side, or even upside down. I've seen in some cases. So there might be another what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, there's a playfulness which confirms the idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
I should have realised this before. Does it not have a Philly or Filius or anything?
No,
doesn't
have it. No. So
it's often filled in. What
yeah. Put in the square brackets.
Yeah, they meant to put in, and it would, if it was proper, it would include.
We could put a whole story in square brackets if we want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what it's meant to mean, surely. So does that mean that we have possibly a name and then an epithet?
Yeah, oh yeah. Easily it could be.
Because the other ones I've seen with only one name, without the son of or here lies.
Yeah.
There is often like a describing. What was the one we have? The Embari the Smith in Tavistock. I don't know if that has actually a. Sorry. Yeah. Just anyway, that just stood out of me. That's not stood out of me before. So.
Okay.
So no, go on.
It could well be. And so that we might be able to call out what the describer is.
Yeah. I think the infilling of things like it's a Latin stone, should have these added things in there. Is you find it all the time, especially with the facsimiles and the write-ups and everything. It's totally bent on the idea that it must be Latin, so it's missing these parts.
Yeah.
It's
missing letters as well. I've seen that as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously someone who's not so up on it copies it for their website or something and doesn't fill in the square brackets, and then the waters get muddied, don't they? And it's very, when you're just not, as you say, not actually going to see the stone, very easy to get misleading information about what's actually written on them.
Yeah,
and it's you often find in books which have replicated either a photograph or a drawing of the stone, you'll have the revised Latin presented. It should actually read like this, so that we can understand it. And so I think it's always good to go back to what you can see, and then be clear about what it is you are seeing. But from memory, I think it's at the top of the page in there. It was thought to be intended as the son of Gawain, David. So the Tuidoc is essentially seen to be a version of David.
David. I've never come across that
no
before as a.
No.
And do they?
I don't know whether Gawain's got a son called David either. Looking at the genealogies, that's not the
no.
the name. There's no son David, as far as I can tell. There is one recorded son, which I think is Kingallen.
Kingallen.
Yeah. Right?
Interesting.
There may be other, there might be other mentions of possible family, but you'd have to be digging there for that.
Mm. Yeah, that's worth digging around for.
Mm.
Does anyone give a translation of Conhino? Do they say it's a name? Do they? Or...
yeah, I haven't found it.
No.
And I'd like to try and see whether I can get more from that, just to see whether I can tease out whether it is a describer.
Yeah, it could be some again, find a bit more, as it seems to happen each time, find something complementary that seems to fit in with everything else. Yeah.
So that's more, I'll return to that now, and I'll have a look at it. I've made a note that we need to try and understand that better. I've not made any sense of it as Latin.
No.
You can't see it. I can't get at that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Even if you break it down and you look at it as if there are abbreviations there.
Mm.
Nothing's hit me.
No.
So it may come. 3 months' time.
2:00 in the morning.
something might suggest itself.
I've got it.
Oh, why didn't I see that? Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Right. So we're blind on that bit. We're blind in the sense of what that name and describer might be. Although it's taken for David.
The Tuadoc is a very naturally sounding Brythonic name. Fits in with that, what you'd expect from a Welsh name.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I'm just having a look online to see if anyone says it, and you're right. They're just sort of putting the filius in. It would be really good to have a good look at the stone and see if there's even any suggestion of that.
Yeah.
Because it really does not look like it at all, does it? So the assumption is made that it's it's someone because of someone, because that's what most of them say.
Mm.
Yeah.
So great. Always worth checking the stone again to see and to feel the stone as well. We did Margamad when we weren't quite sure. We put our fingers there gently and we felt the track. To persuade us to be more sure about the form we were.
Absolutely. I think going off the facsimiles is dangerous enough. Going off photos is a little less dangerous, but actually going to see it is the safest way, because
the light can just catch a photo in a strange way, and you can
totally
see all sorts of things.
Or you can control the light as well. You can go there with a torch and
oh yeah, absolutely, that's a good idea.
Really,
it's interesting how this letter, the area around the lettering, I don't know if it's been cleaned up, but it almost looks like polished around the lettering, and then like pockmarked above and below.
Yeah, there's a bit in it. It looks much darker than the rest of the stone.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just been done to sort of bring out the lettering, or
yeah,
absolutely, yeah, possibly.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, so what have we got out of it then?
Right.
Well, last time we had a sketch of about 5 lines, didn't we? Because that's where we were when we just happened to speak last time.
Mm-hmm.
But it unfolded several more lines. It's hard to what suggests itself in each of the lines is often it's intuition, or you get a feel for it. But strongly, I got by giving. So the whatever the situation is, this person was in, it's by giving. So he's proactive in some way. For this reason to harrow, So the person was pained because of his giving. And then to lead from this place to proffer. So it's a little bit obtuse, isn't it? But it just about hangs together, I think, in the sense of, well, by giving for this reason to Harrow, and it was for to lead from this place and then to proffer, to offer. So it was a curious start, that one. But I wrote that I had immediately had a sense of this is a possible allusion to the Passion of Christ. So it just fell into place. So, you know, there's quite the quiet voice that you get in your head. Just suggested that one, and I thought, well, that's interesting. So I held with that one, and as it unfolded, that seems to be it seems to be supportive to what comes after.
Yeah.
The next line is the reverse line, and it's here. Sorry, to bear hurt. So we're back to the situation again, and evil, the side of a hill. So we have the motif there of, okay, we've got the hill coming in, so Calgary comes in that sense. If we go with the top line, then it says a tree, and that could be the cross. That's how it just breaks out in the Welsh. Then we have execution, a high place. So we're back to the side of a hill, and then we have Christ clearly, and then a stranger. Christ a stranger. So we have the idea that Christ is a visitor to wherever this event is, and we've got it sounds very much like Christ's passion. Then we begin to form with a better focus in this present line. Is that clear for everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have it's interesting that we find a stranger there.
Yeah.
And sort of how he might be perceived where he is.
Absolutely.
The tree as well is actually interesting. What sparks me is the figure in kind of that hermetic druidic crossover with the hanging man. See what I mean? Which was a kind of, it's got that resonance archetypally with Christ and the cross.
Wasn't Odin crucified on a tree as well?
That's right.
Yeah.
The spear.
Yeah.
That's right. How many he was pinned to the tree for a period of time, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So these motifs are there, aren't they?
Just thinking of I'm going to go on about this for months now. The Tolkien speech, where he's talking about not seeing Scandinavian or Saxon and Brythonic as two separate things, and seeing a much sort of wider tradition.
Similarities between Latin and Welsh. And
The
word of wid came in for seeing and for sight. So we're back to Odin in a sense there. But that's weird. But other words are related. So the Latin had a word, the Welsh had a word, and I think the Anglo-Saxon does in weird as well. So all those words are rooted with knowledge and seeing. So there are words which have a deep commonality and meaning.
Yeah, very close to the or seemingly to the constructed Proto-Indo-European.
Next is clearer in the sense of goodness, Christ, to incline to himself, alas, belonging to heaven, a commerce, a seal, agony, harrows. So we do have some kind of bargain that's gone on here. So,
well, we're certainly
it's again, it's a powerful it's a commonality with Odin pinned to the tree there. So the
This is absolutely amazing that this stuff comes up.
I mean, and then a vow to God, one that encumbereth. That's the old spelling that I had in the 1688. Let it be, woe a tree, to punish a high place, Christ. You can't get any more clear than that, can you?
No.
Wow.
So it's even from the first line, it's been unfolding in the layering towards this, this passion. And then we continue to bury Christ, a cover, to himself, alas, empty, strong, a seal, a cave. So we seem to have Christ brought down from the cross here. He's empty. Perhaps he appears to be dead. He's close, in that sense. There's no sign of life in him. And he's settled in his resting place, strong, a seal, a cave.
Isn't it fascinating that, if you were completely off the scent here, we would be seeing completely different imagery. We're not seeing lakes and clouds and things. We're seeing caves, hill, tree. These are, which all link very closely to either the passion or something very similar in ancient mythology, which is
There's a strong place of the real and the a particular place.
Yeah.
And it follows through to delay, crumpled long, a sigh, empty, transitory, same kindred Christ, custody, or the keeping. So that seems to be an allusion to Joseph of Arimathea, I think, who had charge or had the ownership of the cave into which he was able to take the body. So we've got delay, crumpled long. So he seems to be in a position there where it takes some time to arrange it.
Yeah, I straight away thinking of Grail as well. The Grail. The other famous thing that Joseph of Arimathea was meant to be in possession of.
Yeah.
And of course, with elements of Christ in it.
Next line: funeral rites, welcome to lament a Jew. Alas, purified, what is pure, straight a wish. There seems to be an event that took place very quickly, almost in the sense of, making the sign that the person's passed. We need to, say the right things and pass the body into a place where it can be dealt with. So it seems to have been a very, organized and directed at that time. So the wish for that to happen was followed through straight. There seems to be no bar to that.
Right.
People reading the same thing?
Yeah.
And then we're in the business of, now that you've placed Christ in the cave, to revive Christ. A shroud to himself, so he's covered. Alas, hurt. Fortitude, agony, a cave. So the position's very clear there that the business is to bring him to. And the following line: to endure pain and damage a slumber. So he's tended to. He sleeps off. So to groan, to rise without lameness, the highway to return, Christ to secure. So it's getting him the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that Lustleigh's not far from the end of the oh golly, which one is it? It's not the Foss, is it? It is the Foss, yeah. Lustleigh's right at the end of the Foss Way.
Okay.
Right.
I don't know if it's on it, but well, to be fair, I'm not sure if anyone actually knows where the end of it is. I think they guess a lot of it. But yeah, just thinking about the highway to return, and just thinking about this journey possibly through Britain as well.
Yeah. So wherever this event takes place, he's got a journey by it. I think in the two poems we get a sense of land and sea. In this one, it certainly mentions the highway, doesn't it?
Mm. Yeah.
So to return, welcome. So he's wherever he's returned to, he knows it, and he's welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And a region to him, profit, belonging to heaven, exchange straight a desire. So it seems to be an endowment, some sort of endowment has been given to Christ on his return. So a region, so an area has been given to him. And that phrase, belonging to heaven, it's interesting that bards might be given land which is free for the business of heaven.
Mm.
In that sense, the land was theirs to use, but no tax was taken from them. And in that sense, the business of the land was to be used for religious usage, and and it seems to be that that exchange was made straight, and it was a desire, it was a wish. So this may have been part of an understanding
and a agreement with two happy parties.
Yeah,
and brought to the Doomsday Book with Joseph of Arimathea and Innes Wittrin.
Yeah,
that kind of deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
This, I believe this stone is on the road which would lead one to Glastonbury.
Right.
Absolutely. I don't see why not. I mean, the problem is that with ancient ways is that there's some that in places can be picked out and you can say this is definitely the route.
An old way, yeah.
But with others, it's trickier, and people have made guesses about where they go. Carl tells some great stories about Roman roads, doesn't he? In his videos, where they say, "Oh yeah, there's a Roman road here. Dig it up. I know it's here. We definitely know it's here." And he digs, and there's nothing there. Not even the suggestion, not even a lighter brown stain, which is meant apparently a Roman road. There's nothing there at all. And it could just be 200 meters to the south. It could just be as simple as that. But unfortunately, where we know where a lot of these Roman roads are, I don't think we do know. I think it's their best guesses. So yeah, I would say that you could. This is very near the end of the Foss Way, and obviously, even if I'm not sure the exact route of the Foss Way, but just like I imagine traveling today, you head for a motorway, even if a motorway isn't going necessarily where you're going, you do it for your fast travel. You go onto the nice big wide solid surface road because you'll travel faster than you would through muddy holloways and sheep pens and things like that, or risk bandits, obviously, with the protection of the King's Roads obviously being a very important thing as well. So yeah, I think people would have easily, if you want to get to Glastonbury from the area, that's certainly a way to do it.
Yeah, I've checked out the map in the sense of what the roads are, where they're placed, and how you might move.
Yeah.
There's a big ley line, isn't there, as well, which passes in that general direction from Land's End through across. It's the St. Michael line. How close is that to this kind of?
Yeah, that'd be. I'll have to have a look a bit closer. I know it sort of transects them all fairly far north. Obviously, it's heading sort of northeast. Yeah, I'll have to have a look at that. Actually, me and Adam, we were gonna do a show on the Michael line. We should do a video on the Michael line.
Oh yeah,
there seems to be a Michael line and also a Mary.
Yeah, it's the Michael and Mary. I haven't looked at the Mary line stuff as much. I know they sort of parallel to each other, are they? Or
it's as if
over.
one skips.
Yeah, okay.
It's over and across the line. So
yeah,
you have a rigid straight line for the Michael line, and the Mary line seems to be like a snaking line.
Oh, tangent. Okay, right, yeah.
But keeps with the line, as it were, but keeps on crossing over it. That's a fascinating idea that those two things are in some kind of proximity to this as well.
Absolutely, yeah. The Michael line is absolutely. It's just too many coincidences along it. I mean, I'd never even heard of places like Borough Mump or anything like that until recently. You just look at it and you're like, oh, it's another Glastonbury tour, basically. And you can see it from Glastonbury tour. I mean, it's just it's all along it. It's just absolutely incredible things. Yeah.
I put some videos up ages ago of me dowsing across those lines.
Oh yeah, was that Avebury? Did you go?
I went to Avebury and I went to Glastonbury tour.
Right.
Because I had seen videos of people dowsing and I thought that's fantastic. I have to do it for myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of those people. I have to really put it to the fire and see if it's, made of real stuff. And actually, I can't believe it. It's every time. I did that walk about 20 times because I just
can't believe it.
Is it okay? The part of my brain was I'm going to do it 19 times, and the 20th it doesn't do it. It just, it doesn't. It didn't happen. So, and also I didn't record when I was at Llan Elid. Okay, which is slightly off topic. I went to the amphitheatre. The mountain, and because I saw Ross do this ages ago. I think it's like a really early Britons in history video, and he goes with a few other guys and asks the dowsing rods, where did Joseph of Arimathea preach? And it's like, I walk across and it's dead center, and it crosses. You ask it that, it crosses dead center in the mount every time. I did that as few times as well, and I thought, oh, it's amazing stuff. So the dowsing, has sort of worked its way into this stuff, and
I think it's a really good. It's like having another tool for testing the waters. It's just one of many. If you have your historical tools, your archaeological tools, your linguistic tools, I think dowsing is another thing to. It's not, it's not necessarily amazing for me by itself, but if you've got other evidence alongside it and it helps you confirm things, I think it's brilliant.
Absolutely.
It certainly helped me understand some sites, and often they have made correct assumptions, which I've then been able to prove later on. They've also changed their mind on me several times with some things, and sometimes I feel like they're taking the piss out of me as well. I've got that. I don't know.
Well,
I actually stopped. I did it very intensely. I did about a good 3 or 4 weeks of dowsing quite a lot of places, and I now have a very strange relationship with my dowsing rods.
Have you ever tried the I Ching, Peter?
No, I haven't. I've read a good bit about it.
That's very interesting. I've done that since I was a young man at college, and I used to be. I've used it all my life. But when I was young, I asked too many questions of it. I was told basically to shut up, be quiet, and listen to what I'd already been told. So there are times I think when it's almost as if you can overdo it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're
yeah.
not going to get any answers because you're not listening.
Yeah. And, it's funny when I try to purposefully almost to try and debunk myself and try and debunk the rods. It's funny, after 2 or 3 times of me trying to debunk them, they will literally cross and then not move at all.
Yeah.
Until I put them away and then get them out again. They'll just like, it's like they're like, oh, you're just trying to bugger me about here.
Yeah,
shut down, and then won't do anything. It's so odd. And I'm just standing there holding them, going, just do anything, and they just won't move at all. I can't even make them move by wobbling them around. It's amazing.
I think I've spoken to people who talk about dowsing and divination and things, and there's a real unconscious element to it, like the unconscious and all of the kind of parapsychological stuff that comes with that. There are trickster elements, like you were saying, and
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah,
and there are times when actually it would be disrespectful to keep on asking the unconscious the same thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
which is why you'll get trickster up, and you'll get.
You should have respect for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Think that's you can't go into it if you don't feel like you are able to receive the same thing, the knowledge, really.
Yeah,
you have to. About the tricksters. I mean, tricksters will still not necessarily give you just false information, though. They'll give you a little bit of real knowledge to almost like draw you in a bit, and which can be very valuable. Gives you a little bit of something which you need, and then we'll be like, oh no, gonna change my mind on you, or give you something which isn't there. Or
I've experienced that myself, and it's kind of like poof off in a cloud of smoke.
You're
on your own, son.
We have a very
something which you can tell straight away is a load of rubbish. Like purposefully dump something such a big whopping stinker that you know that it's
totally.
It's
good to be careful of that kind of. It's good to not necessarily be over skeptical. It's good to be skeptical, but it's to be in kind of like a half karate. You've been ready to be in a karate stance if you need to be with things.
Absolutely,
and just discern for yourself. It's all about discernment, I think.
Yeah. And if you don't, if you think, oh, there's something going on, but I don't understand this, then you don't mess around with things you don't understand. You should tread lightly and tread carefully and respectfully as well. I mean, I don't think there's any harm. Courtesy costs nothing. So if you are, even if you're dealing with 2 randomly swinging bits of metal, or you are dealing with something which actually has a tremendous amount of power, then a bit of courtesy will. It doesn't cost you anything, and it could leave you in better stead in the future, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. My girlfriend's training at the minute to be a hypnotherapist.
Oh yeah,
she's trained to after every session have a real moment to thank the unconscious, thank it, show, be very gracious, and don't rush it, don't abuse it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
I thought that was interesting about what you said about the I Ching. About I've had similar messages in altered states where it's like, I don't know why you're here asking me. You know the answer. You know exactly what you need, and it's your own fault that you haven't done it yet. So sort yourself out and go and do it. Basically.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. That's really interesting. I've definitely had a very similar message to that. Yeah. Sort yourself out, mate. You don't need to come here and do this. You just need to sort yourself out. Yeah.
Get on with it.
Yeah.
I think we're on the last line here, aren't we? With
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Returning to it, it's we've got to a point where it appears to end. After this, I couldn't really see anything much else being offered, and I let it rest. And it seemed to come to a natural pause here, as does the statement. But it says, care not. Well, he might be in a situation now where he might not be able to do much, and no responsibilities were given to him. So care not. The River Severn. So we have a place. This may be the region that was allotted to him or given to him. So the River Severn, a rim belonging to heaven, without care or sorrow, of the same family, welcome. A chair. So he's returned home to his family. I think he's been given time to recuperate. And
the position?
The position, the chair's some kind of, a position to take up when he's ready. So he's got a job to do, whatever that is. We can imagine that's his ministry in some way, and that's his teaching.
This this middle sentence I find very interesting. Firstly, from thinking about star maps and thinking what the 7 could represent on a star map.
Okay.
The rim belonging to heaven. And then also, is there another meaning of Havren?
There might be.
Did I this is like a really odd memory from Britain's hidden history of Ross talking about it meaning prostitute.
Okay.
I could be so wrong. There was some. Oh God, I wish someone knew that. Oh, I wish I. Oh, yeah. Anyway, but then I was just thinking about.
I'm going to make a note of it and to see what else I can find out there.
His wife.
Yeah.
Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
Tonight. Yeah, but I that was just that came from. I think that came from the star maps again. Ross was talking about the 7, and it's to do with it was in the work to do with the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Okay.
And how Gilgamesh is like laid out on the across the star map, or there's a star gourd. This is just tweaks loads of memories that I've had tucked away for a while. Yeah. So, but I'm sure there was something about Havren and possibly relating to prostitute. But yeah, that would be obviously again is something that's possibly complementary again.
Yeah. The other stone takes the story slightly further in the sense of there is apparently a marriage and there's a child, so that would tie in. It's fascinating that there might be layers of meaning here, above and below. So about 2 years ago, I think I did a translation. I had a note of a coin pointed out to me by Monica Escobar, and she sent an article to me, and it was a coin which was from the area of the Buni tribe, which is on the 7, isn't it? And the coin is essentially understood to possibly be Jesus Christ as a king in that area before he went out on his ministry. And so we have a link there to place being his home place, journeying out from, returning back to. But on the coin itself, the figure or the figures in the coin seem to refer to a kind of heavenly constellation. There's a kind of a horse figure, but it breaks up into other forms, and an analysis of those have been made to match them to astrological situations.
Yeah,
and
very much like those early British coins, isn't it? Aren't they?
Yeah,
those kind of star maps on there.
Yeah. So there does seem to be a reference with pinning Christ to a star map above, and then locating to this place on the 7. So there are connections there which we might understand better again.
Very interesting region. once considered the heart of Neolithic and also Bronze Age Britain from the sheer weight of archaeology that's there.
Yeah. And it does feel when I traveled there as a young man, I just felt this is the oldest place of habitation. In my gut, my reaction was, this place has been tended to for a long time.
The hill forts there are, like Maiden Castle is in the south, is tremendous, absolutely massive affair. And there's a couple more in Dorset, aren't there?
And then this is also this very interesting area of the Gewissae.
Yep.
Who became the Wessex people and whoever the hell they are. What their roots are. Because Devon is not a name, because obviously quite a few of these tribal names came back again after the Romans were kicked out in 409.
Or earlier even.
Or earlier. Well, absolutely. I mean, definitely by 409. I only say 409. Caleb did a brilliant video the other day, and it was about Britain or Britium in the letter.
Oh yeah.
And apparently it's in the same document that talks about the letter. It says a year before, so 4010's the letter. Sorry, 410's the letter. In 409 it says that the Britons were fed up, so kicked all the Romans out of Britain. They were fed up of not being protected properly, so they just booted them out. And then in 410, this letter's written, and everyone concentrates on the letter, despite the fact that in 409 it says it's plain as day.
Wow.
they kicked them out. I know it's only a year, but it's just so funny that this letter, which the statement is full of ambiguities. There's no copy of the letter or anything like that. There's just this letter. We're not quite sure where it was even sent to, but in exactly the same document, 409, plain as day. Fed up of not being protected, booted them out. So that's just another example of where
which means that but very much that the being protected is part of a deal.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Not conquest.
No.
So in that sense, well, you're not meeting your contract, buddies. Go.
So you see, there's a book out there. I think it's called Britain Roams Afghanistan. It's just literally talking about it as the Romans are there in their fortified centers, quaking in their boots, because it was chaos outside for them. They didn't want to go out, and it required four entire legions for one little country for the entire time it was there. I mean, very funny. That's an interesting idea, interesting way of looking at it.
Absolutely. I'll have a look at that.
Yeah. But so this Debonai tribe are certainly a very interesting area, as you say, Dorset does have that feel of being inhabited and tended. I see what you mean by tended. Yeah, it's like a garden. It really is a garden. Thousands and thousands of years of history there. Absolutely fantastic. And this idea of about Glastonbury as well. Wherever Glastonbury might be, the Fosse Way and because the route through East Devon and then Dorset, and you really would have. See, it's interesting around there because if you think about the Somerset levels, Glastonbury would not be on a major route itself because the levels are not a place you would take a major route through.
Was it more watery than it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was only reclaimed in relatively recent times, much like East Anglia.
Access to it might have been more by boat than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a fantastic bit of archaeology, the Sweet Track, which is several miles, I believe, of upright posts in the marsh. Boarded, basically, miles and miles of bridge that was built, thousands of years ago, linking all the high places. They found other examples of them in the fens, but the sweet track is, I think they've got evidence of miles of it. It's pretty fantastic. But they're only a person wide though. You wouldn't be able to take animals down there or anything like that.
So it's a walking network.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So if you're moving, say, materials and things up, or even just for direct travel, it's better to go through Dorset just because you're walking on dry land and you can get onto the raised. You've got the raised chalk uplands as well, which will lead you to the Ridgeway, for example. Yeah, absolutely. That coin has fascinated me for quite a long time. It's pretty striking.
Yes.
But that's one of those ones they date them from anywhere from 50 BC to 55 AD, don't they?
Yeah, I think I've got.
They normally
plonk them a date of 28 AD, something like 22 or 28 from memory. It's a couple of years since I looked at it.
God, that's pretty accurate, isn't it?
Yeah,
didn't know that.
That's fantastic, John. Really great work. That is brilliant. That stone is absolutely fascinating. I'm itching to go and look at it. As I say, we're going to do some driving around Devon and Cornwall next week, so we're definitely going to get to Lustleigh. Absolutely.
Great stuff. I can't wait to see what you.
I'll get some photos.
Yeah, brilliant. Good stuff.
Right.
Here we go.
Yes.
One thing we didn't mention last time with this one was this little thing here. What do we think?
It's difficult to know how to incorporate that in a line. So obviously you've got 3 lines there. You've got the Ruvki and the Avdeti. You've got 3 lines there. Then you've got this axis going up where you've got the cross. It's not a crow row, but I think it is. I think it is an image for Christ, and we have in the head a C, and we have in the arms a T, so we have the makeup for Christ in the Welsh there. So I think it does form that. The decoration on either side, it's really interesting. I mean, I put my finger in the shape of it and then traced it down, and it seemed to be, something coming from above, looping down and going back up again. Up and down motive. And I thought, well, okay, this could be to do with transcendence coming down. It could be. So it's difficult to know for it with any sureness. And then that right at the top, where you mentioned that kind of W that's there, or is it? It could be an I and a V. It's like a flip turned Arwen, isn't it?
Arwen, yeah, that's what I thought.
So it's fascinating.
And I think if it was an Arwen, I think it would.
It's the wrong way around for an Arwen.
The wrong way around, yeah, it's right. It's the wrong way around. But
that could be a joke. That could be a pun. That could be.
Yeah, absolutely.
That could be intended.
Yeah, indeed. But I can't help but my brain can't help but make the connection that the Arwen and talking about Christ motif would have some significant crossover.
Yeah,
seeing as Belly the sun god is seen as by Wilson and Blackett at least Christ.
Yeah.
So
but more of that later.
Yeah.
Well, just looking at the ignoring the H and looking at those.
Well, I did ignore the H after a while because I was really. I heard what you said about the fact that it's basically just a road sign and pointing to, but I tried it. But in the end, I let it go and I realized no, this was a later edition.
Yeah, it's probably been squeezed in, hasn't it?
Very much.
But if you look at
why didn't you put the H right in the in the bottom section?
Oh, I know,
and larger where you could see it. We know which way we're going. But to be caught right in the intricacy of all that busyness of design, I just thought, yeah, you're asking for trouble when you want a quick visual sight for where's the road, boys? Well, look for that letter H in the middle of all that mess in there. Of course, I can see it. So it was, like.
I still think it's interesting to show the sort of the idea that anyone other than someone very important would have a stone like this made, because rather than make a road sign out of granite, they lifted an ancient stone off the ground and did their best to carve the letters in, because it's easier to do that than it is to go and find a nice shaped bit of granite and cut, because it just is. And there's several reused crosses.
It was besides the roadway.
Yeah, it was in the right place as well. That's right. So you getting a piece of granite, there are granite gateposts all over Dartmoor. I want to make that clear. There's a lot. The most valuable bits of granite are ones that are long and thin and have a relatively flat side, because they're useful for gateposts and things like this for signs. And when there's quite a few of these, and I think they were built all around the same time, when there was pretty much an order went out that we need signposts across major ways.
Yeah.
And I was looking at a beautiful, really rude stone cross. It's really wobbly and very rough. It really looks very ancient. There's no inscription on it, save for the road directions, which were added later. And that's when they believe the cross was re-erected as well. So, this wonderful ancient Christian monument lying in the dirt, and no one does anything with it because it weighs a bloody ton. It's too difficult to put up. But then someone's got some money and says, we need road signs built. And it's easier to pull this one out of the dirt and put something on it than it is to go and find your own bit of granite, because someone's gone to the hard work of selecting a nice bit of stone with already got a nice flat faces on it. These are very valuable monuments to the people who put them up. And we still see, I mentioned that Embari, the Smith stone again, because I still think some people suggest this was put up in memory of a blacksmith. So no, it wasn't. It was put up in memory of a king whose epithet was the Smith. You don't have a blacksmith doesn't get a stone. This is very silly.
No, this is I agree. Yeah. It's a bit like looking at there's a helmet I've been looking at. Really, I can't remember the name of it. Is it? It's gone anyway. But it's been given as a helmet for an officer. Well, if the officer class had helmets like that across the breadth of the Roman army, there would be many of them. And therefore, we're talking about a pinnacle in a sense. You're talking about a headpiece for somebody who's in the emperor line. But at the moment, it's allotted as a hat of a cavalry officer.
There's no way. It's so decorated. So
I think is that the one Monica shared?
That's right.
I saw that. It's a beautiful piece.
I think it's called.
Yeah.
Just come back in. It's fabulous. It looks alien, but it also looks very much like the Sutton Hoo helmet when you catch the front of it. It's got all the right sort of structures, and you're thinking that reminds me of something. That's very interesting. Anyway, I've had a go at pinning that one.
Yeah, you've got to be interested to see where you get with that.
It tells a story.
Yeah.
So looking, if this is a figure we're looking at, if you take all the direction as all the decoration as one lot, there's certainly it could be a figure and with heaven, rays of heaven, Do you know what I mean? Something like this.
Yes, some kind of process coming down in that sense to meet him halfway. You've got, as I mentioned,
Wow.
Tracing the figure out, there's some interaction above the figure and above the the upside down Arwen. You've got this whole superstructure there of form, beautifully symmetrical in the sense, in answer to his posture. So it's it's not meaningless.
Yeah,
it's far from meaningless.
It's not
far from meaningless.
It's not just decoration for the sake of decoration.
Oh no, absolutely not. Yeah.
No, it's a narrative, isn't it?
Yeah, because we covered this in the previous one, didn't we? You don't go hammering something into hard stone
without
I'll stick a loop there and I'll stick another loop there and a couple of lines to finish it off. Yeah,
it'll only cost me 5 blisters.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because it looks good.
There's a clue. There's a clue in there too, which we can't read, which I'd love to know what it said. But above the H, there's a kind of, squiggle.
Yeah, is this part of the original? Is it part of the illustration? Is it like a measurement or something?
It's part of the illustration, but I can't read what that is, and that would be fascinating to know whether or not
there's actually anything there.
Yeah, it could be the distance in miles to God knows where,
Yeah.
Or it could be a meaningful piece of information.
Could be, yeah.
I can't see it. I can't see what that is.
So I don't think I didn't quite cover it in the last one, and that was the Avdetti part. Was I'm sure I've seen versions of this where the T is in square brackets, or just where they've just put an I there, so that it's read as audentous generally.
Yeah.
But Avde is still a name in Russian, which is synonymous with the Greek Obadiah, meaning God's servant.
Oh wow!
What?
Yeah.
Wow!
Nice spot.
Yeah. Oh. So it'd be really interesting to see whether this actually says Avdetti or Avde. But yeah, or Avde is still and the Russian. You might think, Russian. That's a strange link, but it's Russian that helped me understand Wiriconium.
Okay.
Uri is the Russian name for George. So Wiri for Gwiri, there's not a stretch because we still have this as Yuri or Uri in Russian.
Yeah.
And I will go on a little tangent here because I spoke to a lady from the Caucasus, a linguist from the Caucasus, last weekend. She started talking to a Welsh person, and she sort of made some comments about her native. She speaks Russian, but Russian isn't her main language. She started talking about links with that in Welsh, and the Welsh lady didn't seem that interested. And I just barged into the conversation. Tell me more. And she was saying that she described the similarities between the Caucasian languages and Welsh. She didn't say they were similar. She said they were too similar.
Oh.
She said they were too similar.
Wow.
So they are, and she said, and it's the same. She said specifically Welsh, Cornish, and Breton.
Yeah.
I asked her about Irish, and she said I only spent a little bit of time around it. I couldn't say, but she said the similarities don't strike me in the same way that they do with Welsh, Cornish, and Breton. She said there's very similar imagery in the meanings. So Arth, for instance, Arth the bear, and strength and warrior nature, you find that same word Arth and that symbolism and those ideas in the Caucasus, in the Basque region, and obviously in Wales. She said she thinks the style of like folk dress and folk dancing and stuff is very similar in her home region than it is in Wales as well. I said to her, well, the Welsh actually have an origin story that takes them back to Troy. And she said, literally straight off the bat, she'd never heard that before. And she said, I wouldn't be surprised. Just straight off, I wouldn't be surprised. Makes sense to me. And what was the other thing she said that was of great interest? Something really good. Didn't ask the bear. No, it got me thinking about this Basque region in Gascony. This is a really interesting area in southern France. This is where Beli is said to have, or sons of Beli were said to have pursued the Romans after Caesar's invasion to recapture a prisoner. I think a wife was stolen, and Beli and his sons. This is in Iolo's third series of triads. Pursued them to Gascony and then settled there. And this is, I think this is in a couple of triads because it's mentioned as one of the depletions of fighting men is when these men left and went to Gascony. Right on the coast of Gascony, there's a place called Cap Breton. Right. Which is not linked to Brittany, it's linked to Britons in particular.
Yeah.
And of course, you only need to go south over the Alps and you're in Canterbury. Now, it's interesting because Canterbury, obviously, not only does it have within it pretty much the same pronunciation for the ancient name of Kent, in Cant. This is despite all of despite Romans, Saxons, and whoever else, Kent has managed to maintain its very ancient name, which is a very interesting thing. Apparently, Bury comes from a Saxon burg.
Yeah.
But the one other place in the world which has maintained this cant in Canterbury in northern Spain is still called Canterbury. So I'm not quite sure. The idea is that it comes from, well, it does come from the river name, which is the Ebro. Now, if you change a B to a V, which often happens in these mutations, you get Evro, which is very similar to Efroc.
That's right.
So we have these very Brythonic names, all from Gascony, all going across northern Spain. And again, you get into there's two towns in northern Spain called Bretona, and these are linked to the 6th century, 5th century, 6th century migrations there, which of course is under the usual narrative of Britons fleeing Saxons, right? But where did they flee to? They fled to somewhere which has clearly ancient pre-Roman connections. They fled to somewhere which is incredibly rich in copper, gold, silver, and they also fled to somewhere where they built hill forts, which doesn't sound like fleeing to me whatsoever. And if you look at the what was I looking at the other day? I can't remember the name of it. Castel something or other. I'll send you a link, Adam, to put in the descriptions. Castel something or other. They've done LiDAR of it recently. They always thought it was a Paleo-Hispanic hill fort from the Iron Age. They did some digging, dates to 5th, 6th century. And you look at the LiDAR and it's just bang on for a Univalate hill fort. I mean, it is... It's incredible. So this was clearly not just like the move to Brittany. This wasn't a new thing. They weren't just fleeing somewhere new to get away from Saxons. They were going somewhere which had very deep and ancient connections with Britain.
Out to they could be,
and possibly continual connections throughout the Roman period as well. And they were there militarily. This was not just a fleeing. This was I've seen it presented by pretty mainstream historians as a a move to secure resources or re-secure resources. So yeah, that is an absolutely fascinating area to look at. There's not a lot out there, and it's one of those places where, like Brittany, it's like, oh, I wish there was someone there I could who was into this sort of thing, who we could talk to. But yeah, that's a really interesting area. All through that, loads of Brythonic names turn up, and loads of connections to be made, which to me speaks to, as I say, speaks to me far more than just a migration fleeing pestilence and Saxons. You know, that doesn't bear up for me whatsoever.
Yeah. You've painted the picture actually very well.
Yeah.
I think that's a whole new chapter, isn't it?
Yeah. So anyway, that was my a couple of my tangents there. They're absolutely amazing from that linguist where she said these languages are too similar. You know, I thought that was absolutely brilliant, and she wants to sit down and have a chat again about it soon. So I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah, please do. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Right. Let's look at Sourton down.
The first thing I did was to take it as Latin and broke it up into into parts. So that included taking the eye, the fallen eye, from the top line, and in that sense, it led to inclusion into the second line, so it could form INRI. So there's an interest. I like the fact that there might be a pun there, in the sense of they're playing with an idea of a fallen figure, a figure that's fallen.
Because that N as well is referring back to where you can play with the letters. That Definitely. I on the first line, and then that N, which is sort of seemingly mixed in with the decoration as well. There's definitely some.
There are many possibilities there for play. So it's loaded. I broke it up in the end to I took the IU and extended it to U bar, and I took the figure for Christ or Christus, and then the INRI into the full title, Jesus Nazarenus Rex Judeorum, and then found from AU DETI ODT O Ditinio. So I just opened that up, and it gave me first cause, the radiance. So that could possibly mean a number of things. It could possibly mean a god, and then we're back up to that, in a sense, inverted Arwen right at the top of the stone. The first cause is related to in the word princeps, so there might be a tie there. So first cause, the radiance. Stop. Behold, Jesus Christ, King of the Jews, relating to right, in brackets, or justice. Deprecation, hold fast. So it's quite a curious thing. Well, it's unpacking that line and trying to get the meaning from it. But it seems to be like there was some kind of legal situation which was being clarified here.
Adam's lost that one.
Yeah, sorry, Daz. Where are you reading from? Are you reading?
Right, it's the Latin line right at the top.
Oh,
okay.
Have I got? I might not have.
Has that one floated off? Is it?
Yeah.
It was too potent.
Dang.
Well, the dog's grumbling. That must have been.
Okay. Anyway, we'll have to.
Yeah.
Do that one. Anyway, it's said. So that's the Latin line.
Yeah.
We should then go into the reverse line, and that should be Eorthi, Edrith, Utra, So have we got that? Have we got that line?
Right.
Yeah, there we go. That's it. That's
the other one. Yeah.
What we have there is then we've read the Latin, then we sweep back into the reverse line.
Yeah.
And we just literally reverse the word couplings. It's given us a whole new set of possibilities from which I gathered the line, and it's written there. Okay, so it's that top line, and then underneath it, that can read diligent. He that declares a cause, the highway. A savior, amazement, a number. Then Christ, a puncturing to grant a perfect work of virtue. So that sounds like Christ purposefully declaring a cause on the highway. So this is his ministry on the road. A savior, amazement, a number. So he seems to have impressed and amazed people along the way.
Mm.
And then the end of it is literally the point of it, pardon the pun, is Christ puncturing to grant a perfect work of virtue. So he's coming to that end. The point of the journey is to be crucified. And that seems to be an unfolding from this possibly legalistic challenge that's going on in the Latin.
Mm.
Right.
Okay. So that may unfold as we read on. We come back then to the regular line. So we fall back to the original pattern. We break it up into its groupings, and then we can read to become earthly, to languish, a germinating Christ agony, to appear a savior, he came footstep.
I love this word footstep because we have, I keep on mentioning these churches with imagery of Joseph and the child Christ coming. There's always this emphasis about his first step onto soil, which again reminds me of the Brutus stone in Totnes. This idea of the rock that was first stood on, this footstep. I think I don't know. That's the image that comes up whenever I see this word, and
it's powerful, isn't it?
Yeah,
where he stepped, and that's a motive again, isn't it? In the sense of recording the footsteps of giants or heroes or saints. You might often find the footprint, as it were. Recorded.
Find that with William Blake as well, don't you?
Yeah.
Did those feat in ancient times. All that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think that line is to do with him coming for a purpose. So it's a curious line, a germinating Christ agony. So this is a thing which is built up. It's a slow planned purpose, and to appear the savior. So I understand that there are many prophecies in the Old Testament of the Christ coming. So it's this idea of this is part of a plan to occur.
Great.
Was through. I've got the reading order there. Language to praise. Behold there, to heal. Astonishment to number. Christ, a stock of a tree to grant an extremity. Language to praise is our abilities in the use of language. Behold there, to heal. Astonishment to number. So he's obviously a healer, and the end result again is Christ, a stock of a tree to grant an extremity. So there are a number of meanings that we might get from a stock of a tree, because that could be lineage.
Yeah.
As well as a reference to, being nailed to the tree or the cross to come, to grant an extremity. So whatever meaning that is, there may be a multiple of meanings that could be teased out from it. So it's to do with his lineage. It's to do with an extremity, and the extremity is his offering. In the sense of, we understand from the Bible, the offering to purge mankind of sins.
Yeah.
So it's to grant an extremity. So in that sense, he's come to perform an act.
That reminds me in the J.R.R stone of the deal.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you bear the sins of mankind, but you have to go through the ordeal. Yeah. Interesting.
And then it falls down into the reverse line, and we have another deal here in a sense, which is this might allude to Judas Iscariot.
Yeah.
Setting a price to deny. So again, who's been denied, and what's the price? So that could trigger off a number of thoughts. Is it Rome that's been denied? Or is it Jesus that's been denied in the sense of offering him over? So it's a curiously open possibility there. Setting a price to deny, a kiss to seal. This seems much more like Judas here.
Yeah, absolutely.
A secret mystery to draw towards evening. So again, this was part of agreement, maybe. So I've heard in that sense that was a deal made with Jesus and Judas, possibly to disclose him so that he would be taken. Somebody had to do it.
Yeah.
So in that sense, that might be alluded to there. And then
sorry, can I just I was just going to say, I always found that idea quite compelling, purely because I read Nikos Kazantzakis's The Last Temptation of Christ, which is the one that Scorsese's Last Temptation is based on, where in that Judas is Christ's best friend and closest confidant.
Yeah.
And that is why he is the one who is asked.
Who can carry it,
Who can basically take, he's like, I'm going to ask you to do the worst thing, basically.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I found, when I read where Jesus is buried for the first time, I was actually very open to that idea, because Kazantzakis played out in a very interesting way. And he was a Christian as well, Kazantzakis. So it's a very interesting book. It's quite materialist. There's not a lot of miracles or anything like that in it. But like Wilson and Blackett, there's almost like we know this, we have from the Bible, this set of events happened. What sort of things do we know that people actually do which can lead to those events? Let's not base it on airy-fairy ideas that we've had from the reading. What actual events could cause these sorts of things to happen? And I really like that approach that Wilson and Blackett take. It's very materialist in a way, but when they look at historical events, they don't just take the idea of what's written about it. They really do look at what things could be, what political, what economic factors, what religious factors could be driving this in order to be written about in this way. Sorry for that tangent, but I think looking at the Bible in as a historical document, you sometimes need to sort of cut away some ideas and think about what's actually going on. and how these sort of things could actually play out from how we see people behaving today. Sorry, carry on.
No, it's interesting that a number of writers have taken that view that there was a close relationship between Judas and Jesus, and a special relationship, and a special ask was made to Judas, particularly because he understood what he was doing, and he agreed to do what he did. So a number of writers have commented on that. I can't list them, but this is dipping into things over the years.
A fascinating idea. It really changes the kind of psychology of Christianity, really, in where you place imargos, where you hang imargos on certain characters in the narrative,
Yeah, which can be overturned.
Yeah, that's right. It kind of shows a connection, a continuum between a son of God and someone who's seen as, the absolute worst. So it's
and the line may contain it here in the sense of I to proceed, blessed thou. So the person that's blessed could well be Judas there. That could be inferred.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So loaded.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then back into the reverse line. Speech lamenting honor. A warlike ensign, displeasure entangling Christ, possession, consent, a perfect work of virtue. So this seems to be the handover in the Garden of Gethsemane when the Roman troops came up. So we have speech lamenting honor. So there's obviously a kind of put down there. The office of the Romans are there in the sense of the warlike. And then the displeasure entangling Christ, his possession, the consent is made, he yields himself up. It's a perfect work of virtue. So that seems to,
or even the disciples who brought their swords and were told to put them away.
Yeah. Yes.
Several disciples turned up like, no, we're gonna, we're up for a Barney here. We won't let this happen. And Christ said, no, put them away.
That's right. Consent.
Yeah. And the consent. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that seems to be quite tight. And we progress with the regular line. Always love it when I get my papers mixed up on the desk. Get those out of the way. Excuse me a moment. Right, where are we? Yeah.
Well, is the final line, just in case if you weren't sure who we were talking about, I'll just say a few points.
Well, I'll follow it on the screen. It's better it's there. So it runs to it follows through to a supreme court to make a denial, a scion, Christ, anguish, virtue superior, a savior, hark, a religious man.
Yeah. It's pretty clear who we're talking about.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's clear enough. Then
I'm going to stay on that page, then we'll move on.
Now move on, I think.
Yeah, cool. There we go.
People online can stop and go back on it.
Yeah, definitely.
So and then we're on to the next line. Incessant to bore or pierce through. That doesn't need any explaining.
No.
Behold, there a savor insensible.
Yeah.
Hurt Christ to purge. So this may well refer to the act is to clear sin, and then a perfect work of virtue. So that's pretty clear as well. And then we unfold again into the regular line, which is Have we jumped there? I've got my papers in the twist. It's no good.
Where do you want to read?
It's a high road. Yeah, I've got it.
Cool.
A high road, languishing. Osculation, welcome. Narrow, a threshold to sigh. Me, a flowing, accustomed to land and come ashore. So this seems to be, seems to jump ahead here to after the pulling down from the cross, after the saving, after the revivification, and this is his ability to hit the road again. And I think a high road and then languishing osculation is by land and then by sea. Languishing osculation.
Yeah.
Well, narrower threshold. So we're talking about he hasn't got very far to walk on a boat, perhaps. To sigh. So he's confined. He's on a boat. He's traveling. To sigh. Me flowing. Accustomed to land and come ashore. So he's returning home.
Yeah, that is. Oh.
So we've jumped in that. Whereas the two stone had the process of the healing and the mending before he was taken away. We've jumped straight to literally here. We've jumped straight to the highway.
The traveling, yeah.
Traveling. Now it may well be that come back again in some time. We might find that an episode in the woods that fills in that gap. We might be able to locate it. It may turn up, but it's referred to in the other stone in that sense. That portion of time where he's resting in the cave, the 3 days as it were, is mentioned there. But he's on the way back home. He's been repaired as well on the way, and when he has returned, we've got in the return to the regular line, we've got fresh to dress, reverence to heal, welcome, a place of defense. So he's been kept safe somewhere. Lint, a tent for a wound, a deed well done. So we have this sense of he's been taken care of, he's been repaired, he's on the move, he's safe. Where he is he might, if we follow the line above it, he's already come ashore. In that sense, the above line is accustomed to land and come ashore. It may well be that he's come ashore at this point.
Yeah.
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 And then we get a fascinating line after that. We flip around again to a bridegroom, painful, a scion welcome, anguish a virgin superior to praise, blessed an inheritance.
Painful. That's interesting. I mean, unless he was. Interesting. Just the fact that you're getting words like scion and virgin and things like that. Again, I just feel like if you were barking up the wrong tree, you would just get the fact that these sorts of words come up so readily.
Yeah.
And together as well. I mean, it's just astonishing, really.
So I think a bridegroom painful might allude to a wound. So some of the punishment that he might have had might have damaged him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even to the sense of whether he might successfully be able to bear a child.
Well, it's a very sensitive area, and even a wound to the gut or the lower gut or to the side, could very easily damage your reproductive organs. I mean,
yeah.
Cool.
It doesn't bear thinking about, does it? Really?
Yeah. So he's a son. He's a Scion welcome, and we've got Anguish of Virgin Superior. So his bride is worried about him. So that her anguish is she carries the anguish in the sense of the fitfulness of what seems to be a marriage here, and then to praise blessed and inheritance. So the anguish is to be able to follow through in that sense and to realize the point of a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And then we follow through finally into adoration of royal offspring. Wow. And then behold, they're healthy. So we got a bouncing bonny child, healthy. Astonishment hurt Christ, a galling between the legs to permit a deed well done. So we do have a reference there to a wound.
Yes.
And we have a motif there which falls back into the kind of the mythos of the Fisher King. So that's that's a surprise. So we have by that Christ returned, Christ married, Christ had a child, Christ is located somewhere around the River Severn. So if that's the case, and it may be possible, then we can then ask those questions to do with, well, who might Christ be in king line of the British, and what the name of that child might be.
I think it's interesting. I mean, and not the first to make links between Arthur and Christ as well. But how even from this, there's things coming up, which...
Well, I think this begins to really draw the line underneath Arthur and the lineage of Arthur.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then we've got to look into the coal line.
And
then the answer could be in there. And I threw this one out. In a conversation to Monica Escobar, because presently I've been working on, as I mentioned to you a while back, I've been translating the Welsh king names and decoding them for their content to relate to the Roman emperors. And I said to Moni, well, we might find the answer in the coal line. Once I've finished the Roman emperors, I'm going to go back up that tree and I'm going to decode the names to see whether or not Christ appears in there. So she threw 2 or 3 days later, she threw a name at me. She said, well, yes, I think you're right. And you should look at Kinvelin, Cymbeline. So I put that aside and I looked at Kinvelin and I decoded it and I got 15 lines. And basically it's another representation of the crucifixion. The whole of his name unpacks the crucifixion.
What?
Yeah. So we might have in Kinvelin, we might have the other name of Christ. And if that's the case, then Avirargus is the child. And then we've got the coal line, and we can track that right through to the Roman emperors, and on the other side of that, through into Arthur on the other side.
Now, what we know about Cunobelinus as well as a very powerful British king who had links with Rome.
Yes, his brother, I think, had Fishbourne Palace.
Yes, that's the suggestion, isn't it? Yeah.
Is it Togidumnus? Is that?
Yeah, that's the one. It's possibly Guiderius or.
Yeah, so that needs to be looked at and unpacked again.
Because I mean, it makes sense after, say, if he moved here after the crucifixion, to have an open dialogue with the powers in Rome. To just go up and military hold out somewhere is almost asking for trouble, and it's better to, there's all these suggestions about him freely paying money to Rome. That. I think that's a really interesting.
We've really got to look at that.
Yeah. And this doesn't necessarily mean he was a patsy for Rome or anything like that. It just shows that there is a connection with the wider ancient world, maintained, in that area, which I have no doubt that someone, a person as politically important as Jesus would definitely have. I think, if we're thinking about these people as real aristocrats, leaders, for lack of better words, aristocrats, nobles, then to think that he would have just holed himself up in a hut somewhere is not the way to think about it. I think he would have been a very, by birthright, had incredible political responsibilities. I mean, incredible in the sense of, the weight of it would have been, but he would have had political responsibilities. There's no doubt about that. So the fact that in this area we have someone linked to them who maintains a relationship with the wider world is also a very powerful king. Yeah. King of an area which also has coins with Yeshu minted on them as well.
Yeah. Well, what
together, doesn't it?
It struck me the other day. I looked at that St. Michael line, and somebody posted the blindness line as well, which is a line on an axis which passes basically northwards. But I think the starting point is very close to where Fishbourne Palace is.
Oh yeah, could be in that area, yeah.
And so that's another tie in the sense of there's a ley line cutting through Britain in a very important way, and the place of it is where Todgy Dumnus's palace is.
Yeah.
And that's called Fishbourne. Then I'm going Bourne of the Fish. I'm thinking of, we've got another.
Fucking hell.
Oh man.
I thought, okay, we've got to have a look at that. So I think
matrix busting stuff.
Yeah.
Fishbourne is another place to have a look at, and there are stones there which are, Latin Roman. Might unpack again in the Welsh. They might unpack something that might help us. So it'd be good to really understand that relationship with, Kubelinus and his brother.
Yeah.
And their relationship with Rome. All that needs to be better seen. But I understand that from the little I read is that he disappeared into Rome, Todgy Dumnus. He wasn't exceedingly popular, and he might have been absorbed into the Roman life. So there's something there to have a look at.
Yeah, I've read some interesting ideas about. There's definitely some suggestion that he is Guiderius and was killed fighting the Romans, Todgy Dumnus, or is the same Guiderius who was described as fighting the Romans. It's been a while since I've looked at that. I'd have to definitely reacquaint myself with a few different sources on that one. But it's, again, we're back in that classic, what we call Wessex region again.
Yeah.
Which makes sense if you think of the idea of Cymru and Loegria. You have almost like a chunk north to south from the Severn to the south coast, which is
that would make real sense as a place of important things going on, especially if it sits, you know, with Dumnonia, you know, the ancient West Country as well. You've got it sort of straddles where you've got these really powerful British kingdoms to their north and west, but it sits on the south coast where obviously it will have great links to northern France as well. So it seems like a really it makes sense to be a sort of almost like a linchpin area of control. You know, if you've got that area, you've got a lot of control over a few different things.
Yeah, it's the key area of strength in the whole of the islands.
Yeah, absolutely. Even without any of its own, you know, it's not an incredibly resource rich necessarily, but you're sort of sat in between other people who are resource rich, and you almost controlling how they want to pass through it. I read a really interesting book about how ancient Britain, how a lot of local communities would have survived off tolls.
Sorry, off?
Tolls, TOLLS.
Yeah.
So controlling your local roadways and things like that could have been incredibly lucrative, even if you produced and sold nothing. If you can control somewhere where people are moving through valuable things, and you know they've got money or resources, you know, you can make them pay essentially. And that is, and Maiden Castle is just tremendous, and it's not far from the coast. And if that is definitely somewhere for people to draw up trading ships on the south coast, and then immediately, oh yeah, we'll take you to the boss. He's just a few miles up the road, and then you go through one set of defenses, then another set of defenses, then another set of defenses, then another set. Then you're in a town, and you're like, right, now you can meet the boss. You know, Maiden Castle is such a statement. I don't even know how much evidence of real battles or warfare there is. I know there's a little bit, but not loads. And for me, that's because it wasn't built with battles and warfare in mind. It was built with, you've just arrived, you want to do the trading, you come to our big settlement and you see what we do here, you know. Definitely. That's the feeling I get from that place. Which, you know, is half the statement with walls. You know, walls aren't just about defense. Walls are making a statement about who's there, and the power they have to organize people and materials, you know, and wealth. So yeah, a very interesting area. Very.
Right.
So we've got we've got some very interesting things now to tie up and look at.
I do wonder if they've got, because these two stones have this very interrelated messages. You know, if we are looking at something,
I would say that the Sourton stone is later. Looking at the narrative, I would say it follows.
Right. Okay.
Because of the message is moved on slightly in the sense of what's occurred, and because of what's left out, possibly in the detail.
So do you think if someone was traveling and looking at the stones, do you think they would be in a particular order? Does that make sense? Do you see what I'm getting at?
Depending on where you're journeying, if there's a chief route, it necessitates that the direction's going from A to B in that sense.
Yeah.
But as with all roads, you're traveling.
You can travel either way, yeah.
Either way. So that sense of, you know, one coming before the other, I don't know whether that kind of holds too, but
no.
In a basic sense, it might be if you're coming from, which one is more inland, for example, of the two?
Well, I was thinking of it more of a west or southwest northeast thing, and following the Michael line.
Yes, that's
yeah. So the they're the opposite way to what you'd expect. And
Okay.
if you're going northeast, but if you're coming from the north and maybe making a pilgrimage to St. Michael's Mount or something like that,
bingo, that makes a lot of
could
sense.
be following it down that way.
I like that.
So you've got an unfolding story.
Yeah. Wow.
But I would like to say that I think the Michael line is thousands and thousands of years old, and was done by the great megalith builders and
I understand.
Yeah,
so
the great surveyors.
So the positioning and placing of the stones in that particular place to do with the fact that it was a very important place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And had some underlying meaning as well that could connect to.
And the transmission of information between religious belief from one time to Christianity as well, with this kind of handover we have with the early church.
Okay.
That makes sense. Like an update. Then again, I don't know. I'm not too up on how the later church sort of interacted with things like ley lines, etc.
No. I mean, other than the fact this church is built slap bang on top of them. I mean, Glastonbury Tor's an example, and we've got Brentor here, which is on the Michael line, St. Michael's Brentor, which is again it's a natural tor, but there's a Norman chapel banged right on top of it by a very heavily involved Templar, no less.
They would have known what they were doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure this knowledge was occulted, if you will, kept secret.
The
knowledge of a few, which was once knowledge of maybe not so few.
I went to Helston in Cornwall not too long ago as well. Helston is not really on the Michael line, but well, you know, certain things on the Michael line do wander off and on it as well. It's not really a slap bang line.
Okay.
But Helston Church is dedicated to St. Michael's. It sits on the top of a hill in the town. They have a Flora Day celebration, 1st of May, in Helston, where one of the dances performed is the fight between St. Michael and the devil.
Okay.
And when St. Michael struck him, the hell stone fell down. And again, another ancient stone, which has been built into a church, not a church, built into a pub. And now that pub is currently shut. So no one can go and see that. You know,
is there any writing on the stone?
No, unfortunately not. And the name Hellstone actually probably comes from Hellystone. It's probably lease as in a court. So Helston would have been a very important place at one point, and probably the court of a king. So that's probably where it comes from. But again, this other mythos of Michael is heavily built into the area. And again, a stone might not have writing on it, might not be a stone that fell from heaven. I don't think. I think it's a local stone. It's not made of any sort of. It's not a meteorite or anything like that. But nevertheless, I can't imagine that stone was not already a monument that was in pride of place in the area before becoming the Hellstone, which happens a lot, you know. Just as I imagine the Brutus stone is probably a limestone megalith that's been reused, and the same with the London stone as well. You know, these could have been very ancient monuments which had pride of place for a long time before acquiring the stories that we have for them now. Which all comes from, you know, is a great tradition of reuse in religious cultures. You know, you realize what was sacred before, and you incorporate it into your new faith, whatever that might be. You know.
Yes.
There's so much idea across Western Europe about the Catholic sort of eradication of paganism, and a lot is put onto that. Whereas I really think that early Christianity, just like other faiths, really, I don't think they went on an immediate iconoclasm trip and started smashing things up. I think that sort of suppression of other ideas came much later in the Middle Ages, and that actually there was a far more slow and like incorporative, is that a word? You know, process of and we've spoken before about whether the ancient British religion was actually incredibly similar to the Hebraic religion in the Middle East at the time, because of their ancient links. So Christianity wouldn't have to have come and destroyed the old monuments. It would have.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. 100%.
Yeah, and slowly over time, as it became its own church, as it became its own institution, it would have started to then, you know, say, no, these are our new lands for our church. This is our new buildings. This is our, you know, and made it its own. But I think that would have been something that developed gradually over time. You know, where do you develop an ecclesiastical style from? You don't just pull it out of your bum. You know, this is something that develop. You know, you can't just immediately say, oh, we're going to build stone churches. That's how we're going to do it. You know, that doesn't happen. It's a process. And I think that process of incorporating the pagan, whatever that was, into Christianity actually happened very early on and very slowly and possibly quite peaceably. And which is why we seem to have leftover pagan things as part of our culture today. And you know, they don't get, you know, they've survived, which means that they weren't chased out and burned out and made laws against. You know, people allowed to keep practicing these cultures for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So
yeah, it's when it's the Holy Inquisition comes around that things really start to change.
Yeah, which is much later than when Christianity was arriving on the island. Even if you're only talking about Augustine, you know, that's still several hundred years before Inquisition. So
yeah, I'd like to dive into a little bit between that interim period of. Well, I mentioned before in the Council of Nicaea, where they really coalesce what Christianity is and kind of get the Bible down and everything. And at that time, the British way to express Christianity was respected and seen as equal to everybody else. And then we get later on Pelagius, and then Pelagius becomes a heretic. And this kind of division that I'd like to really dive into that one day. That kind of split apart and have two different attitudes towards kind of embodying Christianity, which leads the stuff that was relevant to the kind of history we talk about. Yeah.
Fantastic.
This is a different